Welcome back as we continue our journey across the Banda Sea, looking for something very special in these remote reefs and islands with my old friend Alex.
Banda Sea, ring of fire!
We get up close and personal with many different animals as we experience some of the best diving on our planet. And of course, we find the schooling hammerhead sharks. So join me today as we sail through active volcanoes and learn about the history of these spice islands. We resume our trip from the last episode in the Damar archipelago.
Good morning, we are here in Dusborgh.
And this reef is an atoll, so here we've got a pass right here. So the current, we're on falling tide, the current is going out from the reef. We're trying to get an anchorage around here, the current is a bit strong, it's not the perfect place, but that will do for the day, and then we can move somewhere else.
The crew are attempting to drop the anchor on the mouth of this atoll, but the anchor keeps slipping down the steep reef wall below the surface.
These are the times when you don't actually realise or appreciate how hard the crew are working. The crew on the boat are doing all this kind of thing, trying to figure out where to drop the anchor, dropping the anchor, trying again if it doesn't work. So it's really interesting to watch this happen.
After securing the anchorage, we can now set off for our first dive on Dusborgh Reef. And below, it is beautiful, and there are many different schooling fish and predators to watch out for in the sapphire blue waters of the Banda Sea. The thing I love most about diving in these wild places is the diversity. On one single dive, you can see an incredible variety of creatures while looking into the blue around these steep reef walls. And it's not just the big animals we should watch out for. Look closely in the reef and you can see it's crawling with life, such as this spider crab or this beautiful nudibranch. On top of the reef is also bursting with life in these incredible hard coral gardens. In the distance is a nearby island which we will sail to for our evening anchorage. This is Pulau Nila. Nila is an active volcano, and over the other side of the island I spot a village with a drone. I wonder what type of peaceful life the people live out here. So far from what we call civilization. There is no phone signal here, and we are hundreds of miles away from any airports or cities.
Well, it's golden hour here, and what an amazing day it's been again. Diving's been fantastic, so many different fishes, so much action in the water.
Being on a boat like this, out here in the middle of nowhere, life slows right down. The crew on this boat are fantastic, and one of them is the chef, who is busy in the kitchen preparing our evening meal. It is a perfect time to relax before we enter the area of the Banda Sea where we will be hunting for the schooling hammerhead sharks. And lucky for us, we caught a massive Spanish mackerel. This will probably last us for the rest of the trip. After watching the sky burn red, we can snack down on this fresh sashimi, because tomorrow the diving gets serious. Our next stop, we head to the east, to a reef which is not even mentioned on this old map.
So this behind me, the reef of Nil Desperandum.
This exposed reef is one of the most popular places in the Banda Sea. It is only accessible a few short months due to massive waves which batter this place for most of the year.
So we're in Nil Desperandum. So that's a crossroad in the Banda Sea, underwater reef, surrounded by 2,000 meters of water. That's one of the famous sites for the hammerheads, schooling hammerheads. Let's try to get the big school.
Even during this time, the waves can whip up and make it quite exciting to access the dive site.
That's big waves, man.
Underwater in Nil Desperandum is typical for the Banda Sea. Huge gardens of hard corals with big barrel sponges. We are on the hunt for the hammerhead sharks, and as the current is not too strong, we do something we don't normally do underwater. We swim into the blue, far away from the reef. Dancing above, we spot an eagle ray. Then suddenly, below, rising from the depths, we catch our first glimpse. A lonely hammerhead, the sentinel. But where are his friends? We waited and waited, but the school never arrives. Better luck next time. We did spot this huge school of barracuda though. After the dive, we set sail overnight to the next island in the chain of volcanoes in the Ring of Fire.
So we're in Serua.
Serua is on steroids right now. The reef is covered with these tiny juvenile baitfish. And with all these tiny fish come the predators. Get to see our first glimpse of the olive sea snake, a species that is very common on these remote islands in the Banda Sea. If snakes scare you, then maybe this dive is not for you, because they get really, really close.
That was the best dive I've ever done in my life. Millions of tiny baitfish, and then big tuna, big schools of jacks, snakes. There was all kinds of predators just waiting to get these small fish. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Still no hammerheads.
Tensions are high on the boat as everybody wants to see the schooling hammerheads, and now we set sail to the next island.
This is the island of Manuk, probably the most remote island in the Banda Sea.
We're in Manuk, eh? Manuk, my favorite place. You can see that there's boobies everywhere, frigate. This is a unique place. Maybe later you can smell the sulfur smoke as well. It's really special. And underwater, beautiful reef, black sand, boulders, lots of big barrel sponges, snakes everywhere, and of course, sometimes the elusive hammerheads. So we try to get them again, like every day during this trip. I hope we'll get happy today, yeah? So, coconut corner, first dive, right there. Of course, the corner with the coconut tree.
I cannot explain in words the feeling of this island, other than that it is the closest I have ever felt to being inside a BBC Blue Planet documentary. Rising from 5,000 meters of water, this is Manuk Island, the peak of a massive underwater volcano. The island is covered with nesting seabirds. This is Indonesia's answer to the Galapagos Islands. Underwater, Manuk is incredible. One of the most stunning coral reefs I have ever seen. It is teeming with life and colour and a huge variety of fish. current is quite strong here and we have to kick hard to get where we need to. And then we finally see what we have been looking for. A huge school of scalloped hammerhead sharks. Over 30 sharks, each 3 meters in length, swimming gracefully along the reef. This moment will stay with me forever. Manuk means bird in the local dialect, and this island is a haven for boobies and frigates. There are thousands of them patrolling the skies and nesting on the island. As I hear David Attenborough's voice in my head, we prepare for the next dive. The smell of sulphur around the island is very strong, and while diving around these rocky shores of Manuk, it is clear to understand where this smell comes from. Bubbling from the rocks, the sulfuric gases are escaping, a reminder that this is a highly active volcano. But some animals seem to thrive in this poisonous environment. One of them being the olive sea snake. This remote island is one of the only places in the world where these animals exhibit extremely strange behavior. At first, the snakes are alone and looking for food, such as small fish and crustaceans. Once one snake gets a sign of a meal hiding in the reef, another snake joins, and another, and then there are 3. And now these trevallies seem interested to see what's going on. But wait, there are even more snakes coming to join the hunt. What was 3 has now become 5. And 6, and even 7 snakes joining the caravan. And before we know it, there is a frenzy of snakes and fish waiting for their dinner. There is nowhere else in the world, apart from these remote volcanic islands in the Banda Sea, where snakes and fish work together in packs to secure a meal. The reef around Manuk Island is possibly one of the best I've ever seen, and the biodiversity here is staggering. This is likely due to the remote nature of this island and the fact that fishermen are unable to visit because most of the year this volcano is exposed to huge waves and swells. One of the reasons why this coral is so beautiful is the current can be very strong. We have to hook on while doing this safety stop. Luckily, Alex is keeping all of us together and making sure none of us get blown away.
I've just had probably the best dive of my entire life here in that island over there. Amazing diving. Schooling hammerheads flying over us. Must have been 20 or 30 hammerheads. There's sea snakes everywhere. The coral is just so beautiful.
I don't know what else to say. I'm absolutely amazed at how incredible this remote rock in the middle of the Banda Sea is. Amazing.
Manuk is a place that I will never forget. And now we move to the Banda Islands. The outermost reef of the Banda archipelago is Karang Hatta, which is named after the first Vice President of Indonesia who was exiled here to the Banda Islands. The reef here is stunning and full of colour and life. Once again, I am blown away by the biodiversity here. On one single dive, it's possible to see hundreds of different species of fish, all living in harmony with the reef. Some of these fish are quite rare, such as this spotted soapfish, the first time I have ever seen such fish. At the end of the dive, we spot something special, a huge school of bumphead parrotfish, a spectacular sight indeed. And to finish off the dive, an eagle ray flies above us. We now arrive in one of the highlights of the whole trip, Banda Neira. In the harbour of Banda, within the gaze of the volcano Gunung Api, there are buildings from the colonial past.
It's a reminder of the history of these tiny little islands. This is Banda Neira. This was once the location of some really fearsome battles in the Dutch colonial times, where the British, the Dutch, the French and the Portuguese were all trying to fight over control of these tiny little islands.
So why would a small group of islands in one of the most remote places in Indonesia have all of these colonial buildings? We take a walk around through the town and discover why.
So here in the middle of the Banda Sea, we have an ancient Dutch fort, nearly 500 years old. Why is it here, you might ask? In the middle of nowhere. It was here to protect these islands against invaders who wanted to steal the spice trade, specifically the nutmeg trade. Because these islands here, the only place in the world where nutmeg grew naturally. It's endemic to these islands. So the entire trade during the medieval times in Europe was all coming from this island. And nutmeg was a very sought after spice in those days. Very expensive, used in a lot of cooking. Amazing how all of this is because of nutmeg, spice. So this is where the Dutch would have stood to watch out for incoming ships. These were used to protect the bay from enemy ships, specifically the British, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish. They were all trying to get these islands, and the Dutch, they built this fort to protect them so they could monopolize and control the entire trade.
This is the logo of the VOC, the infamous Dutch East India Company. There are relics of this past all over the island, such as this painting, which shows when the Dutch hired Japanese samurais to massacre the entire island, all because the locals wished to trade with the British. None of the island's original inhabitants remain. All of this because of nutmeg. On the other side of Gunung Api is a magical dive site called Lava Flow. A beautiful hard coral reef that has grown on top of the lava from a relatively recent eruption. This shows that much like the fertile lands supporting agriculture around volcanoes, the coral also prefers the nutrients that the eruptions bring. There are huge gardens of staghorn corals, cabbage corals, and perfectly unbroken terraces of table corals. From Banda Neira, we head northwest.
Hello, good morning. So this is Suanggi. This is a rock sticking out of the water, rising from the depths of the Banda Sea. And this is the last place on our trip where we will be able to see hammerheads.
Suanggi is similar to Manuk because it is covered with flocks of nesting seabirds, such as the booby and the frigate. get up close and personal with this massive bumphead parrotfish. We also get an encounter with this huge pufferfish who like eating the barrel sponges. And this is the flute mouth. They may look harmless, but are one of the most aggressive predators on the reef. And above us, we spot a huge school of dog-toothed tuna. I have never seen so many tuna at one time. These fish are almost 1 meter in length. But then, through the schools of fusiliers and triggerfish, we spot the shadow of a large animal. We get our final sighting of a small group of 4 hammerhead sharks on our very last dive. It is like they are saying goodbye to us. As I wave goodbye to Suanggi and the Banda archipelago, I cannot stop thinking about how incredible this trip has been. As the sun sets on this journey across the Banda Sea, we arrive the next day close to Ambon on a beautiful island.
We are at the bar. Cheers, mate.
Yes. Well, this is the end of an incredible trip across the Banda Sea, and I'm finishing here in Ambon. So we've gone all the way from Alor to Maluku, and what an amazing adventure this has been. We've been in places that I never even knew existed, places in the Banda Sea that are so remote you can't see land anywhere, nowhere around you. And we saw hammerheads.
We spend the next few hours drinking beers and playing volleyball with the crew. Special thanks to them and of course Alex for organising this very special trip.